Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Trend Report. Glad you're joining us today, and I'd love the opportunity to introduce you to my guest, Matt Spaulding. Matt, how are you today?
I am great, Sid. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm doing fantastic. Appreciate you being here, Matt, and the opportunity to get to know you a little bit. So please take a moment and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Sid. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on your podcast. I'm a big fan of your podcast and what you do and your mission. And yeah, we got a chance to meet at NeoCon, and I enjoy surrounding myself with positive people who have an upward direction to themselves. So
Oh, thank
it's a
you.
pleasure to be here with you. Matt Spaulding. I'm the founder and president of Spaulding Communications. We are a marketing and public relations firm that ostensibly works with brands and companies in the commercial architect, design, and construction industries. And we think our unique value proposition is we really help clients discover and promote what makes them great, what makes them unique. We believe every company has a story, every company has something that makes them unique, and that's kind of our mission, is to help those companies find that and tell that to the world.
So I really appreciate, first off, the kind words about the podcast. I always enjoy meeting people that listen to the podcast, and it certainly is my goal to ensure that we're providing, even if we have difficult conversations, that we're providing a positive outlook about our industry, about life, and you know, there's something to be said about spreading a little bit of positivity in the world, especially in today's time. That's for sure. And yeah, we did meet at NeoCon very accidentally, actually. We were at the awards banquet Monday morning, and you walked up to me, introduced yourself, and that led to this conversation where we are today. So, first off, thank you for being a loyal listener to the show, and thank you again for those kind words. And you just said something I think is really important that we all remember, both individually and as businesses. We all have a story. And it's a story that needs to be told, whether you believe it does or not, because your story has the power to really resonate with someone, impact their business, impact their day, impact their life. And that goes for a business as well. And we're going to talk a little bit today about thought leadership because you do a lot of that and the importance of thought leadership. Before we jump into today's topic, I'm always curious to learn, Matt, how people get into the industry. So, will you share a little bit with us about actually how you got into the contract interiors industry?
Sure, yeah. Well, I'll try to keep it somewhat brief. But
Again, we all have a story, right?
that's right.
So,
We have a story, and I have a story about this.
yeah.
So it was kind of accidental. My background is in agency life. I started in Chicago at one of the big agencies there in town. Um, and then I moved to Atlanta in the mid 90s, dating myself there. And I had bounced around from agency to agency, over a couple of years, and just wasn't finding a right fit. And I finally found what I thought was a really good fit for me at an agency here in town. It was a cool integrated marketing firm. I was heading up the PR division of the company, and we were a small firm. And 9/11 happened, and the agency owners basically brought us into a conference room, and they said, "Hey, our clients are pulling back. We're going to have to shut the Atlanta office." And I was kind of faced with a decision. Do I go work at Blockbuster, flip burgers, and get out of this industry because I just hadn't found a right fit, and maybe it was the
Mhm.
universe telling me time to go do something different, or do I take that bold leap and try to go out on my own? And I walked back to my office, closed the door, and because we were a small firm, I was basically handling everything for three of the clients that we were doing work for. I called each of them, and I I basically said, "Hey, you're going to get some news from our company leadership, but I wanted to let you know, I'm going to be going out on my own, and if it makes sense and you want to work together, I'd be happy to keep our relationship going." And of all three of those clients, came along, and this was 20 years ago.
Yep.
So over the course of 20 years, we're still working with essentially an entity of that client from 20 years ago. So, and that client was in the commercial interiors industry.
Sure. So, a bit of an accidental entrepreneur, somewhat forced into starting your own business. And then that accidental entrepreneur led you to a client that's in our industry. And now, 20 plus years later, here you are with a focus on the industry as a whole, not just furniture, not just architect, not just interior design. So, as a whole. So, Matt, I want to make sure, and I appreciate the story, by the way. Like I said, I always enjoy hearing how people get into our space because, as I've mentioned several times before, it's not an industry that's talked about a lot, right? You don't go to a college career day and here's our industry and all that we offer. But, I'm just curious for the perspective and let our listeners know as well what exactly it is that you do. I mean, you mentioned at the top that you help people tell their story and elevate their brand, but what does a marketing communications company do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, there's a lot of different ways you can look at that. We specialize, Spaulding Communications, we really specialize in the written message, written content. We are not a creative firm. So a lot of agencies will do logo designs, website designs, do the creative visuals that our industry, the furnishings
Mhm.
industry needs. Um, where we come in is really on the written side of things. And so that can be the form of, just tactically speaking, it can be the form of press releases on new products or new company hires. It can be in the form of blog articles, website copy, things like that. And the reason why we focus on the content and the written part, first of all, that's my background in public relations, which is all about writing. But the other part of it is that we think, and again, it's about telling that story and having meaning to the story. You can only tell a story in visuals, in so many ways. I mean, stories have depth to them, right? Stories have
Mhm.
a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's some sort of drama, there's conflict, there's resolution, there's a hero. And, that is, in our opinion, that's best expressed through written content. So that's kind of a lot of our focus is right in that area. And again, going back to kind of where we see our value proposition, helping companies get known for what makes them great. So, for example, we would dig into a company. We worked with a company several years ago in the industry, and we learned that they were doing something really amazing in the sustainable and environmental area of their manufacturing. And we said, guys, no one else is doing this.
Mhm.
Let's talk about how we can turn this into something that's a rallying point for your employees, get them excited and knowledgeable about what you're doing. Let's talk about how we can use this as a platform for engaging your customers and getting them excited. And so it became more than just visuals. It became articles that we promoted to the trade media. It became articles that were used internally with employees to let them
Mhm.
know. And you can't tell a story, in our opinion, again, just merely visuals alone. And you
Yeah.
want it to have some depth and some longevity. So that's a long answer, but I hope
No,
that
but I
that
think
makes
it's
a
a
little bit of
great
sense.
answer. Lots of nuggets there. First off, it focuses on written content and storytelling. And I love how you shared the discoverability of working with a client and something they were doing that was really, really unique and different in our industry. Excuse me. And you pulled that out of them and you shared that in a written form. And you basically, and I say this a lot actually, you help them sell their product without selling their product. And I
Yeah.
think that is such an important thing to do by telling a story. And we could talk on and on about storytelling. I don't want to stick there, but I found out a couple of weeks ago. I'm involved in a pretty large entrepreneur community, a bunch of entrepreneurs supporting each other. And there's a gentleman that was in a coffee conversation with us and really explaining what it is that he's doing. And we were just kind of all chatting. He's a professor at a college. He's got a book coming out on content creation and content marketing, actually. And I was talking about writing, and because I do write, I do have some blogs, and he was typing in something, and he said, "Oh, Sid, you have a blog that's trending." And I said, "Excuse me?" He's, he goes, "Yeah, you have a blog that's trending. It's the most recent blog on my website called something about there's no such thing as multitasking." And he was showing me where it was trending, what the keywords were. And, as a solopreneur, I don't pay attention to a lot of that stuff, right?
Right.
But went and had another coffee with him, and he showed me how to take that content, enhance it so that it would be discovered more, and put some backlinks into it, some outer outlinks to some other websites and other resources. He says, do these things, rewrite this article, do these things, and it's going to be discovered even more. And the reason I tell you that story, Matt, is because there's been a huge influx of people coming to my website and a huge influx of people joining my mailing list. And a lot of it can be traced back to an article that I wrote about multitasking. And,
Yeah,
I just think that underscores the power of exactly what you're talking about telling a story in a written form.
absolutely. I mean, in the marketing world, this is a phrase that I remember from, gosh, I don't even know, 10 years ago, but it's so true. And the phrase is content is king. And you have to have content to keep people coming back to your website, to keep people engaged with you. But here's the key: it's got to be meaningful content. It can't be just something that we get caught up in doing is something like, oh, here's a picture of this, it's a great install, and it's just get the who, what, when, and why, and where. And but again, it goes back to the story. Take that a little bit further. What was the challenge? Who were the people involved? How did you come up with that beautiful installation, that beautiful project for that customer? You've got those. Your listeners and people in the industry have those, and so it is a matter of figuring out how to tell those stories and putting content to it. And the reason why content is king is because you can create some engagement, you can keep people coming back to your website. But when you have written content, it's shareable across so many different platforms, right? You can put it on your blog, you can take snippets of it and put it as a social media post, you can put it in an internal communication. There's so many different ways to maximize that one piece of content for all sorts of different marketing channels and communication avenues that you need to do as a company.
Mm. That is so good. What you just said is so good because we think, I have a lot of thoughts about this, but we think that we have to just keep creating more and more content. In reality, you don't have to. You can take one piece of content and repurpose it in so many different ways. As you just said, you can take one quote that's two sentences and you can tweet it. You can also take those three bullet points that you highlighted in that article and you can make a carousel for it and post a PDF on LinkedIn that drives back to the article on your website or to maybe an article that you posted actually on LinkedIn. There's so many things that you can do with just one piece of content. And but I want to go backwards just a little bit, Matt. And the topic of this is the importance of thought leadership. And your version of this is written, which is fantastic, right? But let's just elevate up for a minute and talk about why is thought leadership. First off, I want you to define thought leadership and then tell us why it's important.
Yeah, that's a great question again. So thought leadership, in my mind, it's very simple. It's as simple as a company having a point of view. Now, you could look in a textbook about what is thought leadership, and you could talk to a consultant at McKinsey and Company or something about thought leadership. But I think it's simple as having a point of view. If your company doesn't have a point of view, this is what we do, and this is why we do it. you're going to be caught in a sea of sameness, right? And so coming with a point of view, that to me, that's thought leadership. And why that's important, well, again, if you have a point of view and it's different, it should be hopefully different than your competitors, or maybe it's similar to your competitors. You make product X and it's very similar to competitor X. But if you have a point of view and you can express that point of view in multiple ways over multiple iterations on your website, through a blog, through events that you're doing with your customers, that creates brand recognition, brand value. And that is the higher level purpose of where thought leadership comes in. It really is it gives you something to talk about, it distinguishes you from others, and it creates more value for your brand. Without that fuel, you're kind of just you're just in a lot of ways treading water. And a lot of companies are fine with that if all other aspects are going well. But at some point, you've got to find that point of view and really accelerate that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that definition. Thought leadership is about having a point of view. If you're a frequent listener to this show and you follow me on social media, you know I have a point of view at about a lot of different things. And I'm not afraid to share that. I'm not afraid to share my point of view. You can agree with me or disagree with me, but either way, let's have a conversation about it, right? I mean, my entire goal is to help move our industry forward and to help our industry continue to grow and help businesses continue to be successful or find new ways to be successful, right? And so, but you got to share that point of view. You got to share what your thoughts are. And as you mentioned, you can do that in written or other formats. But here's the thing, I think it's a circle, right? Thought leadership leads to brand awareness. Brand awareness leads to them actually going to your website, looking for information or maybe more thought leadership, and that then leads them to engage with your content more. Maybe they sign up for your website. Maybe they enroll in a course that you're doing, or maybe they sign up for a panel discussion that you're hosting, and now they become engaged and they've given you something that's very, very important in the world of marketing, which is their email address. And by giving you their email address, they're saying to you, hey, it's okay for you to talk to me. I want to hear from you. I like what I'm seeing here, and I want more information. And that one person that attended a panel discussion about a trend in the workplace may not be a customer today, but next month or next year, they might be $1 million customer. And they got to you because they saw your point of view, they wanted to learn more, and they consumed your content. Would you agree with
That's
that?
absolutely, absolutely. Um, that's a great example. I mean, you can have a point of view on the workplace. Okay, so your products do X for the workplace, whatever that is. It brings great aesthetics to the workplace. It brings better ergonomics to the workplace. Whatever your thing is, you've got a point of view. Now you need to express it. And I think that's a fine example of, okay, so our products are going to bring healthier people to the workplace. Well, let's have a panel and talk about what is healthy workplaces. What does that look like in today's hybrid environment? And how much can a manufacturer, a commercial manufacturer of a furniture product contribute to healthiness? Like let's have an honest discussion. But if you bring in, you can create thought leadership by bringing in outside experts, right? If you have the topic and you're connecting to other people, that brings some credibility and that helps with the thought leadership. And then that's also, in that particular example of a panel discussion. And even when they come to your website, another key of it, Sid, is the experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be a pleasant experience. It's got to be a thoughtful, engaging experience. So you've got to be thinking about it in that way too, is who's on this panel? Where are we doing this panel? Same with the content on your website. When they come to your website, what's that experience look like? Does it take them, is the first thing that they experience when they come on your website is a big, sign up now, and it's in the middle of their screen and they got to X out, and like now they've had a bad experience. So it's not just about the content itself, it's about the experience as well. And that also is tied to your brand. What is the value of your brand? Are you the quick and easy brand to get solutions and move on? Are you the thoughtful brand? Are you the brand that gives, multiple resources for people to consider? All those things tie into who you are and how you do it. And that's your guidepost for how you create the thought content and how you deliver it and the experience you want the people to have with that content.
It's so good, Matt, because I'm sure as the listeners are listening to this, they all were nodding their head when you said go to a website and 2 seconds later there's a pop up join my newsletter, right? And you got it, and it's so irritating. Or the worst to me is you find an article you want to read, and then you go and you read the first two paragraphs, and then you get a pop up that says, "Oh, to finish reading, pay us $9.99 a month to finish reading." Why post the article online in a public location if I can't read it? That drives me crazy. But it does all boil down to customer experience, and I want to get really simple with this. If you go to someone's website and you find something you like, and the only way to reach out to them is to complete a form,
Ugh.
you've lost that customer. They have just bounced from your website because you made it difficult. You made the experience for them. This is why I tell people all the time, put your email address where it's clickable on your website right there so they can click and say, I really like this article. I'd like to learn more about what you do.
I
Most
think
brands, most people have forms to fill out.
Sid, I think that's a great point. I couldn't agree more. And I would say another key to thought leadership and your brand and that experience is it comes back to people. People want to interact with people. They create connections with people. We remember things through people. It's just so important. That example that I gave early on about how we helped a company, find out that, wow, you guys are doing some amazing things with your environmental manufacturing processes, and this story needs to be told. Well, one of the things we did was we said, who are the people that are working on this? And we noticed that their director of sustainability was this really dynamic person. And so one of the things we said is, we need to get this person out speaking more and sharing this knowledge with other manufacturers in the industry and what it means for the people that are specifying and buying these products down channel. And so it became kind of a program where we were putting people and the sustainability director front and center. One of the things, to get tactical for a second, one of the things that we did was we nominated him for a prestigious nationally recognized environmental leadership award, and he won it. And he was up on stage with, you're talking about the sustainability directors and VPs for like Ford and Apple and all this. And this is a manufacturing company, kind of mid-sized manufacturing company. I mean, it's great for him personally, but again, that was a jolt in the arm for that company to be like, hey, he was recognized for the work that he did at our company. And it
Yep.
was really powerful for this, mid-sized company to be acknowledged with some of the big players, not in their industry, but on a global
Mm-hmm.
perspective. So it is putting people at the center of things. And your comment about having an email there is great. Why not put a picture of someone that they're going to be talking to as well? These are all good
Oh,
things.
we could probably hang out on this conversation for a long time because another thing that I, you're spot on. People do business with people, right? And even though you may work for a big brand or a small brand, they're still going to do business with people. They may come because of the brand and the brand recognition, but at the end of the day, they're still doing business with people. When I am researching and I land on a company's website and I go to their first thing I do, I look at their homepage. First thing I do is then go to their about page. And I want to learn about them. I want to know who they are. And if I go to their about page and I learn nothing about their people, I've lost interest because I want to know, all right, who is the leader? Who is the founder? Who is the, this person or that person? I want to read a little bit of a bio about them and get to know them just a little bit. And it's just so important. And I see so many people just don't do that. They don't, it's like they don't open the curtain to let customers inside to see who they are. So I think you should include faces, names, email addresses, and I don't necessarily say you have to put phone numbers, but definitely put email addresses where people can reach out. Maybe there's a connection there or something. And I don't know. I think there's a lot that we could talk about just with that human connection aspect of marketing and
Well,
with
that,
websites.
that's a good point. And that's the other side, I think, to, marketing communications is there's one side that is, generally speaking, it's the promotion side, right? It's
Mhm.
here's our new products, here's our services, here's our experts that you can talk to. And there might be something in there that is, again, it's your point of view, it's your unique value proposition that needs to be highlighted and illuminated. But there's another part that companies have that they can use, which is their values, right? What do you stand for? What are
Mhm.
your values? And so whether for I've seen this before in the past. Some companies, for whatever reason, they're reluctant to put employee names or pictures or their experts on their website, because maybe they're going to leave and like, oh gosh, now we put that person out there as an expert and now they're gone, whatever the reason. But at the end of the day, your company has values, what you stand for. And I believe those are the kinds of things that should also be highlighted on a website and
Mhm.
infused into, where you can, marketing materials, marketing messages, things like that. So it brings a humanistic side to the business more than just here's the suite of products we offer, here's why we're great, and take it or leave it.
I couldn't agree with you more. And there's something to be said about empowering your people with thought leadership. And you mentioned the guy that, excuse me, the person, the director of sustainability that they put out front. There's a lot of power in empowering your people with thought leadership and even giving them some thought leadership to share, to let them actually go be the voice, because they should be the voice, right? And we could actually go down a full rabbit hole with that again. But you mentioned something just a second ago about brands and posting things and sharing things about their product. And this is what we do. Excuse me. And I know we are a product driven industry. We need to sell products in order to keep our businesses open, to generate revenue, to make profits, all that kind of thing. That's what we need, right? We need to sell products, and I get it. But I see so many brands just only posting about their products. And it's, I see all the way from dealers posting about a chair they've got on special for $99, and they post that with a little bit of copy on LinkedIn, like, come buy my chair today. I see other brands that have beautiful pictures and say, here's our XYZ product, and they don't tell us anything about it. They don't tell us any stories about it or how it's made. So you're nodding your head, so you're agreeing with me. You've seen a lot of that. What would your recommendation be for brands to do things differently? Because, and here's why I'm asking the question: posting a picture of your product and saying, here's our new XYZ product, visit our website to learn more, is checking a box that I posted content today. And that's my opinion, right?
Mhm.
Taking it and describing it, telling a story around it, is a lot more about driving engagement, because checking a box, maybe you get 3 likes, maybe you get one share, who cares? You just checked a box. But content is about engagement. It's about people liking, it's about people sharing, but more importantly, the two other things that it's about is people commenting and then people sending you direct messages about the story that they just read. So, what would your recommendation be that brands start to think about doing differently? And that was long winded there. Sorry, Matt.
No, that's, I mean, yeah, that's the $65,000 question, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to showcase your products. And for whatever reason, Sid, I mean, this, it seems like 99% of everybody in the furniture industry just shows a picture of their product with no people in it. And again, we're a message firm. We deal in the written content, so it's not necessarily outside of our scope. But I honestly don't know why that is. Maybe there's some creative design firms that could speak to that more. Maybe maybe someone who's looking at a picture of a product with someone in it distracts from the product, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
want that distraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it does go back to a story. And I think there's a place for posting a picture, a really elegant picture of the product in a setting where you can, as the customer or the designer, you can visualize that. Wow, that would look really great in an open office environment. That's nice. But there is also the point, I think, which is what you're getting to, Sid, of telling a story. And whether it's designers or customers, they love a story about the product. I mean, think about the time when this is going to be a terrible analogy, but
It's okay.
you go to buy a shoe, right? And the shoe guy says, okay, you're looking for a tennis shoe, right? Okay, well, here's the one you wanted, but let me tell you about this shoe over here. Rod Laver, I'm dating myself, but
It's okay. I do
he's
it all the
a
time.
famous tennis guy. Rod Laver had always wanted to design a shoe just for tennis players. I'm riffing here. This isn't the truth, but and there's a story behind the new shoe that they're talking about, right? It's Rod Laver designed this. He worked with experts in the industry. This shoe has everything that a tennis player needs because Rod Laver created it,
Mhm.
right? It's the same thing. You've got a chair. What does this chair do other than, $99? What was the reason for why you as a dealer or you as a manufacturer created that chair?
Mhm.
Now, we all know that sometimes it's a Me Too chair. You got to have it to fill a product gap or something like that. But I think that's the story, right?
Mhm.
This chair was designed to do A, B, or C.
Mhm.
And here's why that's so important.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, we meet with folks at NeoCon, and they're always introducing new products. And that's one of the first things we say is you got to have a story about this
Mhm.
product. And whether it's how the design was created or how it fills a market need or whatever the reason is, there's got to be a story behind it. And I think, to your example of social media posts, adding some sort of element to that post is going to be good. And you could actually turn it into a story almost. You could do maybe 3 separate posts of that product, but the content is a little bit different each time. And maybe the visual is a little bit different each time to match up with how it originated, what problem it solves, and who it's perfect for.
Mhm.
Those kinds of things. It can go a little bit deeper than just here's our product today.
So what I find fascinating about this conversation is really challenging people to think differently, right? Think differently about what it is you're doing. Your focus is the written word. And there are statistics about how many words that we read and those kinds of things, but whether you're posting an article or you're writing copy for a website or you're writing an article on LinkedIn or publishing a blog somewhere else, whatever it is that you're doing that is written, you got to grab their attention. You want them to continue to read. There's got to be it's even in an email. If you've got an email that scrolls, you got to give people a reason to scroll below the fold. And because if not, they're just going to go hit the delete button. You haven't brought them in, right? And statistics prove that we as human beings remember stories 22 times more than we do simple facts and figures. And so I want to know the story. Tell me, rather than tell me about the chair, tell me about how you're impacting the environment by making the back of the chair out of ocean bound plastics and the benefit to me as a human being. Tell me that story.
Yeah. Or who were the people behind that chair's
Yes.
design?
Yes.
Where
Who
did you
came up
go
with
to
the concept, right? Yes.
Right, where did you go to find the inspiration for that chair? There's some reason behind it. So, it could be, Well, our intern who started with us 2 years ago was really concerned about the environmental impact our products were having. And they were pushing us, or he or she was pushing us in a
Mm-hmm.
meeting. And that forced us as a team to go out and look at different materials that we could use in our product lines. And there's a story. There is a story. And it's a matter of finding that story and developing that story. And it doesn't need to be War and Peace. I mean, we're talking,
I was
it
just
can
about to
be
say that. It doesn't have to be a novel. It doesn't even have to be 1,000 words. You can effectively tell a story in 50 words
yeah.
if you just put some thought into how you're going to craft the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Right. So, I mean, I think the takeaway is, think about things in terms of a story, the deeper meaning behind the product, who it's for, and how it's going to benefit them, who are the people that were involved with that. And the other part of it is, bring people into the fold,
Mm-hmm.
so make them part of the story too, because people will connect with people. And I would also say this too, Sid. I mean, people love stories, but people always want to learn how to do something better. They
Mm-hmm.
want tips, they want hints, they want information, right? And so, I mean, it's no surprise. You could go to any different website and it's 3 ideas to do this, 5 steps to a simpler, healthier you or whatever, but there's a reason why those are so popular is because people gravitate towards them. And
Yep.
so, that can also be another way to fuel your content is not only thinking about stories that you want to tell behind your products, your people, your values, what you stand for,
Mm-hmm.
but also coming up with content that can help your customers understand you better or specify your products better, or engage with you better,
Mm-hmm.
and so it can be 3 ways to do this on our website. And that content that can be
Oh yeah.
easily developed by anybody, at your organization. And so
Oh
again,
my
doesn't
gosh.
need to be War and Peace, and it can be really simple. It's taking the knowledge that is inside an organization or
Mm-hmm.
inside a person or people and pulling that out and sharing that with your customers and your stakeholders.
So I'm laughing and smiling at this because it's so good what you just said about people want consumable content, quick and easy, whether it's written, audio, or video, whatever. They want short, consumable content. I mean, we could go on and on about this too. Our attention spans are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, right? In fact, so much so, Matt, I know you've seen that you go on to read an article and it actually has it says this article will take you 4 minutes to read, right? I
Right.
mean, they're
Yeah.
saying, hey, it's only 4 minutes. You may have to scroll 10 times, but it's only 4 minutes. But if you follow me on Instagram, any of you guys listening follow me on Instagram, in August, I did a challenge with Instagram Reels through an entrepreneur community that I'm involved in. I did a challenge with this. Let me just, can I like crumble all those words up or just let me start over? In August, I did an Instagram Reel challenge and for 10 days. And one of the things that the coach highlighted was exactly what you just said about 3 tips, right? And so if you go back and look at my IG content, my reels, you'll see that I'm either giving 1 or 2 tips or 3 tips, like 1, 2, or 3, really short, consumable. I think the longest reel is less than a minute, but I had one that was 40, I think it was 45 seconds, and it was titled 3 Things That All Entrepreneurs Need. And that reel got almost 11,000 views.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, consumable, short content. People really
Yep.
like 3 tips. Here are 3 things that you could do to improve your health and well being in your office.
Yep.
It's
And
content.
it's content. And, I would suggest that companies think about, you know, your value proposition in no more than 3 messages. I mean, people are just not gonna pay attention to more than 3 messages. And so, keeping it bite size, keeping it memorable is really important. We work with a company in the industry, and I don't work for them. I'm not an employee, but I can almost remember their three value propositions.
Because they told you.
It's work hard, play hard, it's care, and it's do the right thing. I mean, those are memorable kind of things. So whether you use bite size 1 to 3 messages for your external marketing, like this is what we stand for, we're a company that does A, B, and C, or whether you're just trying to figure out a way to really succinctly tell your values, be thinking about no more than 1, 2, or 3 key messages, because A, it gets too long, and B, you're right. People will just tune out after more than, 3 or 4 different types of things being thrown at them.
So, what I think, I'm going to recap us here because we've been going for a few minutes now, and I've really loved this conversation. But what I've heard you say throughout this conversation is know what your unique value proposition is, know your values, create content that tells a story that attracts your customer into your ecosystem. That's what I've heard as your message today is to just get out there and do it. But it starts at the core of knowing who you are, knowing what your values are, knowing what makes you different, and then start putting it out there, start writing about it to create that dynamic customer experience so that people come and buy your products.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's it. Now, it sounds simple, but it is really hard. And I mean, it is really hard because I think you could talk to 3 or 4 different people at an organization, and maybe they'd each tell you something different about what makes them unique. You could go to your customers and ask your customers, hey, what makes that company really unique? And they might give you 2 or 3 different examples.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier said than done, but that's the challenge: is what is your unique value proposition? What's your point of view? And then figure out ways in which you can really express that in a meaningful way that, yes, engages your stakeholders, brings them into your ecosystem, and fuels your brand with good content. It's hard, but if you're dedicated to that proposition, it will pay huge benefits.
Well, I'm going to add to that I also think it's necessary. In today's world, as we continue to go more and more digital, and as our buyers continue to get younger and younger, it's important that we do the work so that we know how to communicate it to the future buyer and the current influencer or the current specifier, because they are emerging in the world and they do not work the way that you and I used to work, Matt, or you and I work, or people older than us do not work the way the younger generations work. They don't make their buying habits aren't the same as ours are. So the world's changing. We got to be sure that we're changing with it, and it starts at the center, which is you. So go out there and do the work and get to know who you are, talk to your customers, and then start creating.
Yep, absolutely.
Matt, what a pleasure it has been to have you here. I love this conversation. We went down a couple of little rabbit holes, but I was super valuable for me, and I know our listeners really enjoyed it as well. If any of our community would like to get in touch with you, Matt, what is the best way for them to do that?
You can reach me on LinkedIn, Matt Spaulding, or you can visit our website, spauldingcommunications.com. And there is a U in Spaulding, unlike the basketball company. So Spaulding. Yeah.
Well, we'll be sure to drop your LinkedIn information as well as your website all in the show notes so anybody can click on that and go over and connect with you. Just remember, if you do reach out to Matt, please let him know that you heard him here on the Trend Report. And Matt, thank you again. It's been a pleasure to have you with us. Everybody, go out there and make today great, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate it.